Here.
Councilwoman Nancy Britton.
Here.
Councilman Terrence Rowe.
Here.
City Attorney Joseph Public.
Here.
City Manager Tom O'Neill.
Here.
Okay. The first item is the approval of the City Council meeting minutes of December 9th, 2014. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Announcements. Mr. O'Neill.
I just wanted to defer to Chief Lovering. He wanted to make a few brief comments.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to make everybody aware, the recent tragedy with Officer Charlie Kay. The funeral is Saturday at 11 o'clock at Idlewild Baptist Church. That's probably going to take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, and then the procession is going to come up 54, then it's going to turn down 19, and it's going to come into our city, and it's going to end up at Grace Memorial Center, Cemetery, North Hudson. And normally during those events, you have a lot of citizens that will take part in standing alongside the streets and saluting and stuff. So I just wanted to let everybody know there's going to probably be, the procession normally could be anywhere up to 3 to 5 miles long. So there is going to be some traffic issues, but I think it's going to be a positive turnout with the citizens being out there, and we will be participating in that.
December 27th.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other announcements?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch. What day was that?
Pardon me?
When will that be?
Saturday.
Saturday the 27th.
December 27th?
Joe?
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Any comments from the public? Mr. Brown.
Thomas Brown, 7436 Candlelight Court. I am waiting on written answers to my questions that were asked of the permitting department, the vice mayor, and the city manager. I have received none. I did, however, receive an invitation from the city manager to meet with him and Ms. Martinez and discuss my questions. If I had agreed to meet with them, I would leave the meeting with nothing in writing. I would have a bunch of he said, she said, and you know the credibility of he said, she said. I will continue to wait for some answers in writing or verbally at a council meeting. Secondly, I have some new information on the 6-foot fence. I have presented each of you with 2 pictures of the south side of the property at 7447 Candlelight Court. Notice tree A that is in both pictures. The bottom picture shows the fence that was issued a permit, even though the reason given by the resident for erecting this fence was a lie. The resident led permitting department, the city manager, and myself to believe the fence was erected to replace a fence that was blown down by the wind. We were duped. Mrs. Sullivan said to me that all she did was replace a fence. I wondered why the new fence obstructs the view of the waterway by adjacent property owners, and I couldn't remember the old fence obstructing the view. Last week I found an 8 to 10-year-old photo, the top photo, that shows tree A at 7447 Candlelight Court. This photo was taken when the old fence was up. The old fence is not visible in the old photo because it started at the back southeast corner of the house and ran towards the lake. Mrs. Sullivan has pictures of the old fence that prove it was nowhere near where the so-called replacement fence is. Let me give you a dictionary definition of the word replace. To restore to a former place or position. The new fence is not in the former place or position. If it were a replacement fence, as the resident claims it is, it would not obstruct the view of the waterway at all, just like the old fence did not. Another dictionary definition of the word replace is to put something new in the place of. Something new was put up, but it was not in the place of. Notice in the bottom picture the approximately 20 foot of fence that runs parallel to the lakeshore and the street. It is 6 foot tall and you cannot see through it. On March 28, 2014, the day the permit was issued, the new fence was in violation of city ordinance 4 times. 3 days later, when the fence was inspected, if anybody did actually go look at it, it was passed. claiming that it follows codes and ordinances. This is not true. Move this replacement fence back to where the original fence was, as shown in Mrs. Sullivan's pictures, and I will have no complaint of it obstructing my view of the waterway. It is supposed to be, as we have been told, a replacement fence.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Ms. Spalding?
Sandra Spaldi, 8207 Old Post Road, Port Ritchie. Two things. First of all, water department, water department, water department. Had a problem with my sewers. Kept backing up. Pat came, city manager came, and they fixed it. It was over there. Worked beautifully. But what I want to say is this. My neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Campbell, on the corner, has been complaining about backup, constantly complaining to the city. The city could not find anything. Well, guess what? After the city fixed the drain in front of the house like that, they don't have any more backup. So I just want to give kudos. Must have been what was stopping my water from going, was backlogging up to them. I don't know, but anyway, whatever it be, I thought I would just let everyone know they did a good job. And you too, overseeing it, did a very good job, Mr. City Manager. Okay, that's one thing. I noticed you didn't have your invocation tonight. Why didn't you tell me? I am a legal minister, but I do want to give a prayer, if it's okay with all of you. I would like to ask God to bless all of you, not only in this Christmas season, but throughout the new year. I pray that we all learn and react and do what Jesus Christ, our teacher, taught us, to love one another. I pray this city will grow according to the way it's supposed to. I pray all of you will have good health. For this, I thank God. Amen. Thank
Amen.
you.
Thank you, I'm sorry I overlooked you, Sandy.
No, it wasn't that. It's just I don't feel right if you don't.
Okay, thank
start
you.
off with a prayer.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak this evening? All right, then, any comments from council?
Nancy will start. I as well. Okay, go ahead.
Nancy?
Well, my surprise, well, I just want to say the mayor and I turned out for a wonderful evening with one rockin' fire department and police department. We went out through the city and took toys, and Santa Claus helped us go out through the city to see the children and give them candy and give them toys, and we had a wonderful night. And Tom, you did an excellent job. Thank you very much for getting in and out of that fire truck as many times as you did. But one thing I got to tell you is the people in the city were just thrilled. Just thrilled. They loved the fact that we came out. We went all the way out to Harbor Point. We were in through Sand Pebble. People came out of their homes. We had a blast. And it just, you know, it was a great feeling. We did that many years ago. I spent many times getting out with the community and doing that before. I wanted to bring it back to the city. I'm glad I suggested it because it turned out great. And hopefully each and every year it's going to get bigger and bigger. And, you know, I'd like to see us do Easter and, you know, some of the things that we've done in the past, Easter egg hunts for the children and whatnot. So thank you all for your help. And I got to tell you, Chief Fussell runs one heck of a fire department. I mean, those guys are respectful young men, and the amount of volunteers that we have, just incredible, and great human beings, really. I was so impressed by them. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say thank you to Nancy as well. I heard her on the speaker going through Sand Pebble. I was not able to make it, but to all those who were,
They gave me the
And we know
megaphone.
Nancy to be a strong community proponent. So thank you for doing that. I heard from a few people that also said that was very, very nice. Now on the fence issue for Mr. Brown, we've received information quite a bit. The mayor has made comments on this. The city manager's made comments on this. There is, as he indicated, an invite to meet, although it looks to be that written answers are needed. I know this has gone through the attorney. Look, I think I've been up here for a while. There've been a few fence things come before us. We've had, I believe, going back even workshops on this. All that I think we look for up here is uniformity, consistency, and feeling that the good staff that we have, that we're going to get it right. And I just hope that something is produced. I know that what's mainly been mentioned is we have talked to the other side and they just don't like the answers we've given, so we keep asking the same questions, hoping to get different answers. I hope that's not the case. I hope we can look at this. I myself said a long time ago I reported a fence in my area, and today a new fence has been erected and looks to be in the right place. And initially this fence had to come down. This was on the water, forget the exact location, but on my way home. And it took quite some time to take care of that problem, but it was taken care of. But again, just, looking at this consistency, getting these things right. Some of these are the hard things to do. We have one tonight that we went over. We want to make sure that we get things right, and that does take time. But I hope it's looked at more. I know there's a closed door meeting, but hopefully something gets resolved. Because we're gonna constantly getting this information, and I just feel like we haven't finished with it. Our own mayor made comments on this better than a month ago. Anyway, happy holidays, everybody.
Terry?
Mr. Brown, I contacted the city manager, and he contacted me back on email and said that he would be doing his best to get you those written answers at your request. And happy holidays to everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Nice time.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays indeed.
Okay. We had a discussion on the fence previously, and I think we directed the city attorney to do some revisions in the fence ordinance. Where are they?
Yes, Mayor, I anticipate them being ready for the first meeting in January for their
Great.
consideration.
That would be great. With regard to follow up on Nancy's comments about the fire truck and Santa going through the neighborhood, it was a blast. It truly was. I had a great time leading out the fire truck and waving and passing out goodies. But when Santa came out of the fire truck for the little kids, and they got, toys and Frisbees and candy, you should have seen the eyes on those little kids. They were absolutely delighted. And as we went through Harbor Isles, there was a group of adults playing volleyball and they congregated on the side of the road to thank us for coming through and how much they appreciated the effort we put forward to wish everybody happy holidays. So it was a lot of fun, but there was also a gathering at the waterfront park. The chief was there and others, and apparently there were, maybe you want to speak to that, Chief.
Yes, thank you. There ended up being probably about 75 kids, local kids. We had a band there playing. We had Santa there, which, sorry folks, but there was two there that night. Not sure which one was the
Not
real
at the
one.
same place at the same time.
But it was wonderful. The kids got many gifts. It was nice to see them playing in the park, throwing the footballs around, the Frisbees. We had many help from our little elves. It turned out to be a great event.
I just want to note, too, that the most precious thing was how many of the children wanted to hug Santa Claus. That was so cute.
Jocelyn?
I just want to thank Pastor Lord. I know he's not here tonight. He couldn't be with us because he wasn't feeling good, but we couldn't have done it without his help. He was there with his carolers. They had a band. They brought cookies and soda. So I wanted to extend our thanks to Pastor Lord and his fellowship because they really contributed quite a bit to the event.
Yeah, I actually tried to contact him this week and was unable to reach him, and but is on my agenda to speak to him personally.
Finally, I want to address another issue that we need to look at for the next year, and that is parking. The parking issue for the waterfront district, and as a result of that and other places, the spillover into parking on residential streets that adversely affects and irritates the residents. So we need to address that issue, not necessarily to go with a sledgehammer and drive people away, but to try to, in my opinion, work on a solution to the problem in creating more parking or ways to handle the parking situation. So what I would suggest is that we set up a workshop in January, probably, I don't know, city council or CRA, I don't know which is more appropriate. Tom, what do you think?
I would suggest as a council workshop.
Okay. So that maybe we can get some of the business and residents together, and let's talk about how, what alternatives are there? How do we deal with this problem to accommodate the needs of the businesses and the complaints of the residents as well, so that we don't have issues if we can resolve them. What's your pleasure on a time?
Well, we have a CRA meeting on Tuesday, January 13th, already scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
We would probably have to do it the
You want to do it
27th.
the following,
Yeah.
the following, which would be
Well, that would
what?
give us time to kind of get somewhat creative and think things through,
Okay.
too.
The 27th? When would you like it? Before the city council meeting, after the city council meeting?
That's a Tuesday night. You're not in Ocala.
I thought you were talking about the CRA meeting. Talking about the CRA
No,
meeting.
there's a
Today's
CRA
the
meeting on
13th.
January 13th.
Right.
I don't have a time down for that CRA meeting, by the way. I don't know, did we set a time? Did we set a time for the CRA meeting?
We haven't specifically set a time. If you did not prefer a certain time, I would schedule it after the council meeting.
Okay. So, January 27th, then, you'd want to do the workshop after the council meeting also?
I would think so, so we have more time.
13th, you say?
27th
Or
for
27th.
both. The CRA is on the 13th after the council meeting, and the workshop for parking issues is on the 27th after the council meeting.
Now, with the parking, would that be divided into, we're talking about more than just the term parking itself, but, in looking at,
Are there
just
alternative?
categories underneath
Are
parking.
there alternatives to the scarce parking? Can we use other lots or other places in the city? Can we, what about shuttles or something? What is our direction? What do we need to do to fix this?
Okay.
Okay, that's, and hopefully, we can have a good representation of the business owners and the citizens who are adversely affected by some of the commercial areas, and see what we can work out. Okay.
Just real quick, is there a way that we can get the news to the citizens and to the business owners? I mean, so it's so difficult sometimes to, we got about 30 days to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what we could do? And I'll do it. Put a flyer together, and I'll take the flyer out to the citizens and the businesses over on Sunset, in that area. And actually, Mr. Colombo, you could help me with that area. And then we'll go Old Post Road, be able to get that area also. Those would be the two areas we have to do.
I would think so.
Shouldn't take that long.
Okay.
So if you'll make it and call me when it's ready, I'll take it out.
Okay. All right.
I'll run it out there. You want to come with me? Okay.
Next, moving on to the agenda, we have the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Sorry.
Second?
All right, any comments, revisions? I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, it passes. Moving on to council business. The first item is the second public hearing of the Cody River Single Family Development Property Rezoning. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. As discussed, this is the second public hearing on an ordinance that would rezone the property on Washington Street between Broadway and Regis Avenue from R3 to a planned unit development. We discussed this on November 25, where the council approved the ordinance on first reading. There have been comments incorporated into the ordinance that's in your packet tonight, and the city attorney will go over those. Additionally, Ms. Tammy Varana, who works on the city's behalf as our planning consultant, will present a brief review, and that review will be in this packet here. It will have information that she has put together, and she will go over that for your review and to address any comments that you may have. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Tammy Vrana, and subject to your comments when everybody, excuse me.
Hold on, I think we need the city attorney to address the ordinance first before
Okay.
we get into the,
Would you like me to address the modifications from the last time as well at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 14642, an ordinance of the City of Port Richey, Florida, amending the Port Richey zoning atlas on land hereinafter described from multiple family residential R3 zoning category to zoning category planned unit development PUD in accordance with the provisions of Section 166.041 Florida statute, providing for codification, conflict, severability, and an effective date. The changes that have been incorporated since the last meeting were under paragraph 10. Language was added to ensure that council had final approval of all agreements regarding the playground. The language added said, any agreements regarding the foregoing shall be subject to approval by city council. The other change was in number 11, which dealt with approval of acceptable fencing styles, was changed from city manager to city council approval. And under section 3, and the one you have in your book, what it should read is what you have highlighted in blue should all be stricken, and what should read in place of that is zoning conditions of approval are hereby incorporated by reference and attached as Exhibit B. Those are the only modifications.
okay.
My name is Tammy Varana, Varana Consulting, Safety Harbor, Florida. Good evening, happy holidays. As Tom mentioned, or Mr. O'Neill mentioned, I'll just provide a highlight, an overview of what we went over last meeting for the benefit of council and also for the public. Also, for the very first slide, oops, let's see if I'm going to be able to do this right. Okay, I added this one introductory slide, so just wanted to bring that to your attention because I know this is in your packet this evening. So the general request tonight is for a change from the current zoning, which is R3 multifamily residential, to the requested planned unit development zoning. The request is for 78 dwelling units, a maximum of 78, and the dwelling type would be single family detached. The site is a little over 32 acres, and over half of the site is wetlands. This is an aerial map that is part of your packet. We looked at surrounding properties in the area, and there's an existing land use map that's within your packet that shows that the uses around the site are single-family residential, like what's being proposed within this development, along with office and wetlands. Now we'll take a look at the proposed housing product. There are some photographs within your packet that show the 4 different styles: the Burke, the Isle, the Roby, and the Sella. The applicant has proposed special zoning standards for the planned unit development. We looked at the zonings within the area. The zonings around the site include R1 and R2 residential zoning, and commercial zoning to the north, and then agricultural zoning, which are wetlands, to the east.
Excuse me, could you go forward with the proposed housing products?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm switching mine and not yours. Too much technology here, so,
I don't, let the residents look at those.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Please.
Okay, so this is the Burke, the Isle, the Roby, and the Sella, or Cella, depending how it's pronounced. So we looked at zoning standards. This is the zoning in the surrounding area. You can see that the property is outlined in a dark line, and there's residential zonings to the south and to the west, commercial to the north, and agriculture, which is the wetlands, to the east. The applicant has proposed special zoning standards for the planned unit development. On the left side are the proposed zoning standards, and on the right are the current standards that would be applicable under the R3 zoning. The applicant is requesting a minimum lot area of 4,000 square feet, a lot width of 40 feet, and a lot depth of 100 feet. And then there are special setbacks that are also indicated at the bottom. We looked at public facility to see if there was adequate level of service for applicable public facilities. Relative to traffic circulation, the 78 units, there will be available capacity on the roadway network to accommodate the proposed project. Internal sidewalks at least 4 feet wide are proposed. There would be modifications to the slight S-curve in the sidewalk at the proposed entrance to the development, and that would be to facilitate bike travel and using that sidewalk. There would be primary ingress and egress, or an entranceway, on Washington Street, and that would be gated. And then there would be a second access on Broadway, which would be gated and would be only exit for exiting traffic. There would be sufficient stacking lanes on the property for 3 vehicles to avoid any sort of backups onto Washington. Relative to stormwater, the development must comply with all current SWIFT-MUD requirements. Post-construction stormwater runoff must not exceed pre-construction quantities. That's a SWIFT-MUD requirement. Relative to utilities and solid waste disposal, there is adequate capacity for potable water, sanitary sewer, reclaimed water at some point whenever that service is available to that location, and solid waste disposal. Relative to recreation open space, there is a requirement in your land development code, section 20-14, that a minimum of 1 contiguous acre of uplands be provided for unobstructed play. There is a condition of approval that allows an alternative to that, which would be an off-site park improvements, or a monetary contribution, which is indicated in the conditions of approval, would need to be agreed to and executed by City Council. Relative to neighborhood aesthetics, aesthetic treatments will be required along Washington Street to integrate the development visually with the surrounding neighborhood. At minimum, the treatments would include fencing and landscaping. The details would be described in a preliminary plan application for the development, which would need to be considered and approved by City Council. The fencing shall not exceed 6 feet in height, except for any decorative column finials, which must not exceed 1 foot in height. And then any maintenance would be the responsibility of a responsible entity for the development. We looked at consistency with your comprehensive plan, including the future land use element. This is the related policy in the future land use element, and also for consistency with your future land use map. There were also policies that were applicable in the housing element and also in the coastal and conservation management element. And those policies were found to be, the development is found to be consistent with those policies. And then additionally, we looked at the rezoning request consistency criteria in section 2-44 of the Land Development Code, and found that in all cases for the 19 criteria that the development was consistent with those criteria. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from council? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do we have the applicant here?
Good evening. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Carlos Yepes, 300 Beach Drive Northeast, St. Petersburg. We are here to say we comply with all the terms and conditions of the staff report, and so we agree. If the council has any questions, we'd be glad to answer.
Any questions? We must have done a very good job the first time around.
It's been a while, though.
All right, no questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any comments, comments from the audience regarding this rezoning, request for rezoning? Yes, Mr. Brown.
I was just wondering if this proposed piece of property where the homes are going to be built, does any of that back up to the backyards of any of the homes on Candlelight Court? It seems like it would to 2 or 3 odd-numbered addresses on Candlelight Court.
Can anyone answer that question?
Like Dr. Bittaker's home, or if you know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think their property in back of Dr. Bittaker would be wetland and nothing would be built on it.
Yeah,
There's
honestly, it seems to me that as you look at the property and the way it lays out, because I've been through those woods and whatnot, I don't think anybody in Candlelight will be affected. And I think you're right, Mr. Brown. There's going to be the wetlands in there. Yeah.
The map on page 23 shows Candlelight subdivision and shows the proposed development. Most of the Candlelight subdivision areas that abut the development are adjacent to the right-of-way of Broadway and, Regis. And that's an unimproved right-of-way at that point, and on the other side of the unimproved right-of-way is a wetland area. There are some platted lots that lie north of the unimproved right-of-way of Regis. So you can get a visual depiction on that on page 23 of the PowerPoint presentation.
All right, any other questions, comments from the audience regarding this rezoning? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to City Council.
We made mention of the last time regarding the stacking lanes, and I see that capacity for 3 vehicles. I think that was one question I believe that you might have addressed in there. And also, just in regards to the recreation open space, we see that there are 2 notes here regarding condition of approval. The on-site neighborhood park, which was talked about at length last time, or the monetary contribution that we talked about as well. We didn't particularly put an amount in there, but you know, that was something that was discussed as well. So how does that, you know, with what we've addressed, Has that specifically been answered?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 3 options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, I just-
Okay. All right, so we have ordinance number 14-642 and before us for this rezoning. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve ordinance number 14-642.
Second.
Okay, any further questions, discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
Now, do we know when this is going to start, the actual building's going to start, or when the completion date?
We have the civil drawings almost completed, and we're working on the plat right now. We want to build as soon as possible. We're ready to go. As soon as we get the final city permit, which will require the civil permit to be approved,
Okay.
so we'll be ready.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item is city manager leave time extension. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. Just for information purposes, my contract as Port Richey City Manager limits my leave time carryover, both vacation and personal, to a maximum of 80 hours as of my employment anniversary date. I currently have 242 hours of accrued time on the books. At your pleasure, I would respectfully request that that date be extended, allowing me to use my accrued leave time. Those of you that know me know that I enjoy leave time considerably, and I would appreciate an extension on that. We've had a very busy year, and I thought it'd be appropriate that I be here on the job. And unfortunately, all the fish are no longer nervous out in the Gulf, and so if I have the opportunity, I'd like to go catch a few.
So you have how many hours to carry over?
It limits it to 80 on my anniversary date. of the
Okay, and
current
how many
con-
do you have to carry over?
Right now, I have 242 hours on the books. So that means
So then you just incur some more.
yeah, if you allow me to extend this, and you allow me to extend it by 6 months, I would need to use 160 hours over the next 6 months.
It's a lot of hours, Tom. It's like 4 weeks.
Yes, ma'am. But as you know, even when I do use the time, I believe I make myself accessible to you.
True. Very true.
What's your pleasure?
Well, we've had we generally get into cycles. I'm sure he gets into busy portions as well. So he knows here we are going to be starting in the January. I mean, he has what he has. He's certainly entitled to his time. And, quite frankly, needs to use his time. So I'm certainly okay with that. I think we just want to get into a situation where the time is used.
That's my concern, that we're going
We're going to incur too large and later. I mean, I think you just have to promote using time, as most works do today. They in some places, unfortunately, it's use or lose. But in these specific instances, the using is a factor. We want to make sure that that's used. And as Tom says, it's not that he's not accessible, but he needs to be able to utilize his time off.
We didn't have a limit on what you can carry over?
Yes. 80 hours.
Per year.
Okay. But you're asking for 240 for the next 6 months.
I'm not asking for any additional time. I'm just asking to have the time extended for me to use it.
For 6 months.
Yes. And like I said, I just thought it appropriate that I stay on the job, during the various situations that we've had. as opposed to using my time that I had earned. So I'd like to use it, believe me.
Well, I agree
After
with
all,
Mr.
baseball
O'Neill. I
season
mean,
is
he,
coming
this
on
is
up.
part of his
Yes, ma'am.
contract. He, every employee gets time, can't take it away. So I'd be in agreement of that.
What was that?
Oh, I
Nancy,
was just
didn't-
saying that, every employee, is granted time and it's part of his contract. And I do understand that, he has made himself readily accessible. I mean, I've talked to him Sundays and Saturdays and whatnot. So I think that I have no problem with that. I would hope that you try and use a little bit more next year if you could.
Any other comments?
You just need a consensus.
No, I think you need a vote on this. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
this is
think
a
you do.
contract. This is
Right.
basically modification, or albeit a temporary one. I just, I don't want it to become part of the total and just be forgotten. And I'm sure we all don't. Our intentions were, when we wrote the contract, was to allow a certain degree. If there's a way that we can do this and essentially have these days, or a portion of these days, however council sees fit, set aside into a certain bucket. And you're going to work out of that bucket, and if it's not used at the end of this 6 months, that bucket is going to go away. Otherwise, it's just, we wind up with a separate, 6 months to extend this. So obviously, that's going to mean he's accruing, Tom's accruing other time, and we're going to find ourselves in the very same place next year. So, I mean, there's got to be an end to the rainbow here, is what I'm saying. If council is so inclined to give this extension, I think that it should be accounted for separately.
Well, it has to be used within 6 months anyway, so it's use it or lose it.
I understand, and that's what I'm basically clarifying here.
Yeah, right.
And saying
That's
that,
understood.
and just saying that just from an accounting standpoint, obviously it's not just, we're just letting it continue to grow. We
Right.
need to keep track of exactly what it is, because at the end of 6 months, Tom, honestly, I don't know how you're going to take that much time off anyway, so.
What it would be is that I would need to use 160 hours in the next 6 months.
Right, right.
I have no problem doing that.
Right.
Provided that you're okay with it.
No, I understand. There were a lot of things that needed to be taken care of. I'm just saying,
Well, we would have a problem with you being away that much, I think, is the issue.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
usually Tom, from my recollection, me being, I can't even speak, as I recall, he takes a day here and a day there and a day here and a day there. I don't recall you really ever taking any kind of extended week or anything like that, which everybody really deserves, and he's earned it. So I get what you're saying, and I agree. 6 months, use it or lose it, and that's why I said, we need to kind of have you take this time. We don't want this to roll over till you have 2,450 hours that we're going to have to pay you one day when you decide to leave. That's the bottom line.
Well, he has taken some time, and I think you've had some trips to the East Coast, as I might recall. But,
But not long trips, not weeks. on
the
end.
other factor in this is, what we allow the staff. We have a cap on hours. I know that we talked about this some time ago, so that we didn't find ourselves in a particular position to have to make out a very large check, which could happen. And this is why we talked about these hours some time ago. I forget what some of those specifics were, but that might be something in the future in a meeting that might be looked at, or direction over to a portion of staff to be able to be sure that obviously we're not in a bad place. We do encourage look where I work too. They encourage you to take the time off. That's why they reduce it. If you don't use it, quite frankly, you lose it. I know that's not the case here, but, you know, in many other places it is, and they encourage the time off, and I think we have to do the same. Not only with Tom, there might be other staff members who've, you know, have accrued a lot of time, and, you know, we don't want to set in place to lose it, and I realize we have to abide by agreements, but.
We've, as far as the citizens, as far as the employees are concerned, I know we looked at that, and that's been taken care of as best as that we felt as though we could do.
Mhm.
But as far as Tom's concerned, we didn't really set anything, if I recall, in your contract. I think it was written a certain way, but you know, I don't have an issue with it if, you know, but I just don't, I'm hoping that you know, won't come to us next year and ask, you know, for such an, I mean, I don't mind carrying over 80 hours or so or whatever, but, you know, more hours than that gets a little crazy.
What is the date of the contract, anyway? What
January
date?
9.
January 9, okay. So,
So-
I have no problem with it, but again, I just encourage the use, you know.
What are the current limits now on the average city employees?
Thought it was 100.
I don't believe there is a cap on the general employees. The PBA employees have a cap of 240 hours.
I think they're all 240.
Do we?
If I recall, we did it for the whole entire group. We'd have to check into that. Check into that.
Yeah, we did the whole thing when
We
we were
did.
talking
I
about hours,
I
because I remember 100 thrown around, 240 thrown around. There were some specifics, and,
Yeah, we
and
put
at
a
that
cap.
particular meeting, we did have to address it.
Yeah, we did
Uh,
put a cap on it. So
right.
I'm gonna say, you know, it's earned time, and he's asking for an extension. I appreciate the fact that you were here. I appreciate the fact that you're available on the weekends. Like I said, I'm publicly say I hope that we don't have to extend this many hours next year. And with that, I'll motion to approve.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Anyone from the public wishing to address this issue? Mr. Brown?
With my 30 years with the Postal Service, 18 years of that I was the union shop steward, and that kept me from taking leave. So if I had more than what was allowed carryover, I lost it. And is there any wording in your contract that says use it or lose it?
It is apparently in Mr. O'Neill's contract, yes.
Yes.
He's limited to an 80-hour carryover.
Mhm. Well, I hope you'll grant them some sort of an extension to use up some leave.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else? All right, we have a motion and a second. I guess, as a point of clarification, which was, I think, where Bill was going previously, I wouldn't want this carryover to represent a financial obligation, a further financial obligation for the city, because he's got a contract and so on. So if we have the understanding that he has 6 months to use this extra 160 hours, but it does not represent a further monetary obligation by the city to pay for those accrued hours, then I'm okay with it.
Well, that's part of the use it or lose it program.
I know. I know that.
I'm sure you do.
That's understood, Mayor. And I want to assure you, I want to use the time. And, you know, I do my best, like I say, when I'm off to make myself accessible to you. And I want to use the time, and I really would prefer not to lose it. I've tried to stay on the job to make sure we handled certain things. And
It's been a busy year.
Yeah, we've been very busy.
Well, Tom's done an excellent job, and I think what's missing this as well is, you know, I think Jocelyn's acted as the, when Tom's been gone, and, you know, certainly we have capable staff, so I'm sure that they would work among themselves at, you know, what he's going to look at as some extended time off. she would obviously be here in that interim time, so.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
It passes.
Thank you.
All right, I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, and we'll see you here again next year. And
it.
with that, the meeting is adjourned.
The year just ended, just there.
Oh, hey,
I'm on vacation. Yeah, I don't have to talk to you right now. I'm on vacation.
I don't earlier meeting, I talked to.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Same to you.
You know, at 3 o'clock I'm having dinner.
Okay, I'm gonna be up, what, Christmas Day, Christmas Day? Christmas Day. I'm gonna find out, because I know Christmas Eve. Thank you.
At the meeting.